Greetings from GameKnightGames. In this video we will spend the next few minutes learning to play Exile Sun. This video was designed to give an overview of the rules found in the game. The rules given here are not completely comprehensive, but they will hopefully allow you to quickly understand how the game is played and what makes it unique. Now, the best way to first approach Exile Sun is through its battle system. Once you understand the battle system, you'll be better able to judge the value of different game elements as we explain the rest of the rules. The most fundamental element of each battle is the ship cards. These are kept in your hand, and they represent the forces that you have at your disposal. Now, take a look at this example hand. They're shown here from left to right, weaker to stronger. You'll come to understand these different ship strengths in just a moment. But notice, in addition to the cards that you have in your hand, each player also always has access to ship cards that are stacked in a deck at the center of the game. This deck consists of strikecraft, which are the weakest ship, but they are always available to players and always free to use. Now, let's take a look at the control card. The control card consists of 10 sliding columns that can each represent any number from 0 to 8. Here, in one column, the number 4 is represented. Now 5. Now 8 is represented. And in this way, all the columns can move and depict different numbers. Now that you understand ship cards and the way the control card works, let's do a round of battle. Now here, you see your playing area, and this is where battle occurs. Notice there are 2 decks of ship cards. On the left you have the construction deck, and on the right, the maintenance deck. Now the construction deck holds your very best ship cards, and the maintenance deck holds your average ship cards. But in both cases you must get these ship cards into your hand to use them in battle. Now we'll cover how that happens a little later on, but for now, let's take a look at battle. Let's say that for this example, you choose to use 2 ship cards from your hand, and 3 from the strikecraft deck. Let's see what your opponent chooses to use. The next step is to find out how much power your fleet is worth. Here's where we begin to see the differences in the value of each individual ship card. In calculating fleet power, each circle on a ship card is worth 2 points. Each plus on a ship card is worth 1 additional point, and each minus on a ship card is worth minus 1 point. So, on our ship cards there are 7 circles, which gives us 14 points. There are also 4 plus signs, which gives us 4 additional points, totaling 18 points. Our opponent has 8 circles for 16 points, and 2 plus signs for an additional 2 points, making it 18 points total as well. Here's where the control card comes in. These 18 points of power that we have are allocated among the 10 columns on the control card toward defending our own friendly ship cards and attacking enemy ship cards. These points can be arranged in any order up to 8 points in any one column. Now, for simplicity's sake, since you know the way the control card works, we'll just use large numbers here to represent our choice for this round of combat. Now that we've made our choice, and now that our opponent has as well, we both simultaneously reveal these choices and compare them. For each point of attack that overpowers its corresponding point of defense, 1 point of damage occurs on that ship, and therefore 1 circle is covered up with a scout token. This reduces our power for the next round of combat. For this round of combat, when we compare the numbers, we find that our frigate takes 1 point of damage with a difference of 4 and 5, and we lose a strikecraft number 5 with a difference of 0 and 2. Our opponent loses 1 point on destroyer 3 with a difference of 3 and 4, and loses 3 points on cruiser 2 with a difference of 3 and 6. Once damage has been calculated for all ships, any ships that are destroyed completely are flipped or removed. Our side loses a strikecraft and our opponent loses a cruiser. This means for the next round, we will begin with the power of 13 and our opponent will begin with the power of 10. These rounds of combat continue until one side is the winner or both sides lose completely. Now that you understand the battle system, let's look at the game as a whole. Here we see the game setup as depicted in the rules. Let's pick out a few important details. The winner in Exile Sun is determined by the player with the highest score at the end of the game. Players score these points by the agenda cards, which are shown here. At the beginning of the game, each player is given a card with a secret objective, and 4 objectives are placed face up on the table for all players to try to compete for. Players have different ways of cycling through these objectives to their own advantage. Players also score points through the bonus mission card deck. This is a card with a standard set of objectives which are always available for any player to accomplish. The score is recorded on this victory point track. Turn order during Exile Sun is determined by these 6 spaces. Each space has not only a turn order but also a specific advantage, so players must choose among them carefully. Before the game begins, each player chooses a system, shown here, which contains their starting home planets. They also may place a number of starting fleet tokens in their home system to begin the game. Now let's look at an individual turn. When a player's turn comes, they can move a fleet 4 times. Now that means they can move 1 fleet 4 times, or 4 fleets 1 time, or any combination of the 2. Now how far that move pushes the fleet depends on what kind of space the fleet is moving into. For example, if a fleet is moving into a black space, or a normal space, then 1 move pushes the fleet 1 space. If a fleet is moving into a green space or a trade route, then 1 move pushes the fleet 2 spaces. If a fleet is moving into a brown space or an asteroid field, then it takes 2 moves to push that fleet just 1 space. Yellow spaces are unique. Yellow spaces are military zones, and they act just like a trade route space or a green space for the player controlling that military zone. Players control military zones where their home planets are, as long as they maintain control of those planets. Players must land on an enemy token in order to attack it. However, battles are not resolved until the next battle event is triggered, and so stacked tokens remain frozen until that event occurs. Players may also spend a move to scan an enemy fleet token and see its hidden value. This value is usually from 3 to 5 and determines the number of ships in the fleet if the token is used in a battle. The final thing to consider involving a player's turn is the use of a gateway. Gateways always follow 3 rules. Once on a gateway, a player may move between it and any other gateway for free. They may move off of the gateway for free, but they may not stay on the gateway. The last thing to consider about a player's turn is the timer track, which you see presented here in the center of the sun. The timer track acts as the game's clock, both signaling events like battle and supplies, as well as signaling the game's end. Once a player has taken all 4 of their moves, they must end their turn by moving the pawn on the timer track. They may move this pawn either forward or backwards. The different rings on the track are for different numbers of players playing the game. By pushing the timer backwards, players may attempt to temporarily starve other players of their resources by postponing the supply round. However, as the situation gets more and more desperate, more players will push the token forward and the supply round will come. That covers what's involved with each player's individual turn. Now let's take a look at the events as they were triggered by the timer track. Whenever a battle event is triggered, all players with stacked tokens on the board must battle, and they battle based on the values of those stacked tokens. But let's take a moment to consider a supply event. Supply events are the means by which players gain new ship cards, fleet tokens, and technology. We haven't discussed technology, but technology cards help in a variety of ways. The first step when a supply event is triggered is to reset agenda. That simply gives the players the opportunity to discard their current private agenda card and draw again. The next step is for players to choose a new turn order. Let's look closely at the turn order space. Notice that each turn order space has not only a turn order value, as well as a supply point value, which is money, and a special ability, so players must choose these carefully. The next step is to allocate supply points. So after choosing a turn order space, each player now spends the supply points listed there on new items that they'd like to purchase. None of these points may be carried over, all must be spent. These points are spent using the control card. The 4 center columns on the control card represent 4 categories of items that may be purchased by each player. By spending a certain number of points in these 4 columns, players may be allowed to do things such as moving ship cards from their construction deck into their maintenance deck, or drawing ship cards from their maintenance deck into their hand, or placing a new fleet token on the board, or drawing a technology card. The next step is compare supply points. Players spend their supply points secretly, and then all reveal simultaneously. This is because, as the bottom of the control card suggests, players who spend the most or the second most in any one category can gain a bonus of extra supplies. Once these bonuses are determined, players can claim their purchases. Well, that sums up the supply event. There's one more scoring mechanism that we can't help but mention. In addition to agenda and bonus mission cards as ways to gain points, players also score points every round for protecting their colony resources. These resources include their starting home planets, a special ship card, and a special hidden fleet token. Keep an eye out for these details in the rules. This concludes our tutorial. We do hope you enjoy the game.